I'm gonna make the world's best speaker. I'm a little bit skeptical. Come with me. It's funny because I've seen people make this speaker before, and the same day I had two people send me the same Instagram reel about this speaker. So I figured it was finally time to make it myself and compare it to, listen, I've listened to hundreds of speakers. So if this thing is any good, I'm gonna figure it out. Unfortunately, we have to build it though. I guess this is all we need. Still skeptical. So on one of the videos that I watched, the foam board is kind of the key ingredient to this whole world's best speaker. And I think it's because it's got to be stiff, but it's also got to be light. And as I'm thinking about those two things, it makes sense because they're not actuals. Anything can be an actual speaker. But the speakers that I'm most accustomed to, the drivers have to be stiff and light as well. So these are the magic makers for this speaker build. It's 2 foot by 2 foot foam board. As you can see right here, it's stiff, but it's light. Now the thing that really makes these the star of the show are these little things. These are called exciters. Now I wasn't able to get the exact one that I've seen in a bunch of these TikTok videos, but these are 4 ohm, 40 watt exciters. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take these and we're gonna stick it to one of these. But to get this to sound the best, I guess we have to round off the corners and sand this down a little bit. I'm not optimistic this is gonna sound good at all. The other videos that I've seen, they want a curved off 4-inch radius. So I've found what I think to be is an 8-inch pot right here. I'm going to just draw around it and then cut out the corners that way. It's not exactly 8 inches, but it's good enough for me. Now I gotta cut it off and sand it and then mount the exciters. I know what they're going after with this because we have surface area, which means the sound is gonna be spread out. And in essence, this is an open baffle speaker without using traditional drivers. The problem is to get the best sound out of these, you have to hang them. So they have to be suspended, basically floating freely in the air. I understand that too. So we're gonna have to take something like this, put it inside, and then hang it with some string or something. That, to me, is problem number 2. How convenient are these actually going to be for most people? I can kind of understand maybe these being in the garage, but even in my garage, I wouldn't be able to use these. I think this is going to be a gimmick. We'll find out though. You have to knock down the bit of a shiny surface with some 220 grit sandpaper. At least that's what the video that I watched. I don't know how this is gonna work. Pretend like you just watched me do that on both sheets. Here's the reason why I'm not super concerned about my ability to sand properly and that the edges are completely the same. Because when we mount the actual exciter to the panel itself, the video that I watched wants you to mount the exciters at different areas, so not just in the middle, because apparently where you mount the exciter, there are going to be certain frequencies that don't sound very good. So they want you to mount them in 2 different locations. So let's think about this for a second. If I was designing a speaker, okay, regular box speaker, you want the tweeters, you want the woofers to be in the same location so you get good soundstage, and imaging. So by design, already very skeptical about how these are going to perform sonically. I'm gonna mount one in the center, one of the exciters in the center of one of these panels, and then I'm mounting the other one 2/3 in and 3/5 of the way up. That's what the video said to do. I'm gonna do that. And these exciters are fairly easy to install. They just have some tape. You pull off the tape, you stick it to the thing, and then you need to make sure that the leads are pointing down. These leads, I'm gonna have to solder some wire onto them. I think there are some other ones, and you could install some tabs to make it a little bit easier to connect wires, but I don't have the patience for that, so I'm just gonna solder a positive lead onto the one with the red dot, and I'm hoping that that's the positive. I'm wondering what would even happen if you had these wired up the wrong way. I guess you would know, and then you could just switch the wires on the amplifier. Cannot wait to hear these things. I'm gonna make up about 10 feet of cables for this thing, just so that I can hang them from wherever they need to be hung. 6 foot, 3 foot, a little bit of change. Multi-tool, need to get one. This has saved my life, literally. I can't say it saved my life on the submarine, but I used one of these on the USS Nevada more than I used any other tool. Probably when I shouldn't have been using one of these. You make up speaker cables a lot, get one of those little trigger wire stripper things. I have one somewhere, but I use it so much, I didn't put it away correctly, so I've got to use one of these. This is actually a good one too. Commercial Electric makes pretty good tools. If you're working with speakers or drivers or anything and you like to wear watches like I do, especially mechanical watches, take off your watch, because even though this exciter doesn't have a strong magnet on it, some big beefy woofers have super strong magnets, and it will basically magnetize your watch and your watch won't work anymore. So take off your watch like I did. We got it soldered on. I didn't do it perfectly. I haven't done this for a while, but I don't think this is going anywhere. Got the drivers wired up. Now I'm going to insert these pins into this panel, because one of the most important things about making these work is that they are suspended in the air. So I'm gonna stick this in there and put a whole bunch of super glue in it. Probably should cut this off, but I'm not going to. I think it'll be fine. It just dawned on me that you're not really supposed to use super glue on foam. It'll probably be okay. Those hooks are pretty long. One of the most convenient thing about these drivers, if you want to make these panels, is the only thing you have to do is pull this off. This has 3M adhesive on it, and then you just literally stick it to the panel. Stick it to the panel. I feel like we're taking advantage of the panel. We're sticking it to it, sticking this to it. I mentioned it before, we're putting one in the center of one of the panels. We're putting one 2/5 of the way in, 3/5 of the way up. I would imagine that placement is not exactly critical, considering that you have to have one so far offset from the center point. So I'm not really too crazy about where I'm putting these. I did put this one 3/5 of the way up, 2/5 of the way in, but I think we're done. I have to put some banana plugs on the end of these, plug them into an amp, and turn them on, and find a place to hang them. Putting some of these, it's kind of like a camera frame that you can hang things from. So I'm putting 2 of these together and then hanging it from a rack here I have in the back. That way I'm giving them at least a little bit of room to breathe. They are hung up. I got plenty of room between the back rack. They're pretty close together though, but it's at least gonna give us an idea of how they sound. This one's kind of leaning the wrong way. We'll see what we can do about that. But let's give them a listen. Let's see how good or bad they sound. At the moment of truth, I have them hooked up to the Yamaha AS 301, and the source is the Weem streamer. I can't really see it over there. So we have tone controls, we have variable loudness, we have balance. If I'm gonna be able to make them sound good, it will be on the Yamaha. I'm very anticipatory. I'm somewhat excited. Very skeptical though. I'm gonna AirPlay to the Weem so that I can play some licensed free music and maybe y'all can hear it. All right, here we go. This sounds like hot garbage. I mean, absolute hot garbage. This sounds like I took a single, I don't know, maybe 5 1/4 inch driver, 4-inch driver, and hooked it up to something and just set it somewhere on the shelf. Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of upper mid-range clarity. No bass to speak of. The panel is moving, so it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, I think. I feel like it almost sounds like a woofer that's bottomed out, or a woofer that isn't sealed correctly, or a woofer that doesn't have a surround that's still intact. I really don't know how to describe the sound. These sound like maybe a sealed type. I'll tell you what they sound like. They kind of sound like a Bose Cube not hooked up to the bass module. It's all mid-range. There's no highs, there's no lows. Maybe somehow I did this wrong. I know I didn't use the same exciter drivers as a lot of other people did, but I've listened to hundreds of speakers. And you can get a pair of Rockville for $80 sealed, 6.5 inch two-way. They're these super cheap speakers, but they actually have somewhat decent drivers. They're $80, and you have to let them degas for a while because I think there's formaldehyde in the glue. So open up the box and leave them out in the garage for about a week. Or you can get something like the Mica MB42X. I mean, if you really want to make these just because you like a project, go ahead and make them. Maybe I did something wrong. I don't particularly know what I could have done wrong, considering that there's really not much to do. You cut out the panel. Mine seem like they're resonating too somehow. It could be the way that I put in the hooks, but when I held the hooks, the resonance didn't go away. I mean, it's just absolutely terrible. It sounds like a blown TV speaker from the 1980s. I will say though that I do hear the difference in driver placement. The one that is placed in the middle seems like the only frequencies that is playing without distorting is around the 3 to 4K mark. The one that's placed at the upper 3/5 and the inner 2/5 is a lot more balanced, but then the top end around 2K or so into 4K is distorting. I just don't know what I mean, the panels aren't perfect. There's a couple dents here and there. But between the two of them, you would think that one of them would sound okay. I mean, it's truly terrible. Whoever says these are the best speakers out there, like, probably needs to go see a doctor, maybe try out some medicine. They're clear in the upper mid-range. There's no bass to speak of at all. None. I don't think there's probably nothing below 250 hertz. I'm gonna try sitting them on the floor. something interesting's happening. I grabbed the panel like this, and me holding on to the panel actually increased the amount of bass that was going on. These free floating sound absolutely terrible. Me holding them, they absolutely sound terrible. But here, I'll see if I can get it for you. So when I hold it like that, it doesn't, I mean, it's not terrible. Oh, but see here? So I'm holding it right here. So there's a big bass difference between holding it with 2 fingers. And as soon as I put my hand over here, the bass comes in. Maybe it's because I use super glue in there. Regardless, even when it's sounding at its, and I don't think it is because the super glue actually feels pretty solid in there. They're absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. I don't know why anybody would think that these are good in any way. Even an $80 speaker, direct, like a Rockville speaker, is much better. A Sony SSCS5 on sale at $125 absolutely torches these. They're inconvenient. Where are you gonna, first of all, they sound terrible. Even if they sounded okay, like the way I was doing that, like when I was holding it, there's no dynamics per se. It's all mid-range. You'd have to hang them in the perfect location. You'd have to have the space for them in the perfect location. You'd have to play around with placement of the exciter to get any semblance of a balanced sound signature. This is pretty much exactly what I thought it would be. They're terrible. I don't know if I can properly convey just how bad these are. I actually think I did find a good use for these. Perfect. That was probably a little excessive. I can still use the speaker wire. If you liked this video, you should really check out the video I did on the Rockville speakers. A little tongue-in-cheek, it's titled, I bought the cheapest speakers on Amazon, but the cheapest speakers on Amazon are better than these panel speakers. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe. Thank you for watching.